At the end of the American Revolutionary War, the new nation was in need of a federal government that was strong enough to support the needs of the people and flexible enough to satisfy the people. After the failures of the Articles of Confederation, the Founding Fathers convened to shape a new government. The writing of the U.S. Constitution formed the groundwork for the federal government and the role of its citizens. On March 4th, 1789, the United States Constitution went into effect. The same year, the first presidential election took place. On April 30th, George Washington was inaugurated in New York City as the first president of the United States of America. The first United States Congress began to work. The Congress passed the Judiciary Act of 1789, which established the power and limitation of judicial review. The Congress also passed the Tariff of 1789, aka the Hamilton Tariff. This tariff established taxes on goods and merchandise. To allow the federal government to receive profit from imported goods and merchandise. The Jay Treaty was signed, allowing Spain access to the Mississippi River in order to ease tensions with the rival country. Two major political parties were formed from the writing of the United States Constitution. The Federalists supported the strict interpretation of the Constitution, led by Alexander Hamilton. The Federalists will write on the Federalist Papers stating the importance of promoting ratification of the Constitution. The other party was the Anti-Federalist. They supported an open interpretation of the Constitution and wanted specific rights for all U.S. citizens. In 1791, the United States Bill of Rights was ratified. The Bill of Rights was added to the United States Constitution to satisfy the Anti-Federalist need for documented rights for all individuals. With the addition of the bill, additional states signed into the Union. From November 2nd to December 5th, 1792, the second U.S. presidential election took place. Washington was reelected as president, and John Adams was voted as his vice president. In 1793, Eli Whitney invented the cotton gin. The production of this tool will assist the South in changing from the main farming incentive tobacco to a new product, cotton. With the rise of cotton farming, the use of slavery being a controversial topic, the Fugitive Slave Law of 1793 was passed. This law stated that if a slave should escape from their southern masters into a free state, the state is required to send the slave back to their owner. The following year, a tax was placed on whiskey and alcoholic beverages. The Whiskey Rebellion was a tax protest. Washington will personally rally troops to call the rebellion to rest. The Jay Treaty was designed primarily by the Secretary of the Treasury, Alexander Hamilton. The treaty was signed to rebuild the relationship with Great Britain and America and strengthen the role of Hamilton's Federalist Party. The treaty will be discouraged by anti-federalists who want to sever relationships with Great Britain. Pinckney's treaty was signed on October 27, 1795. The treaty established friendships between the United States and Spain. It will end the dispute of the boundaries of the Spanish land claims along western Florida. From November 4th through December 7th, 1796, the next presidential election took place. John Adams was elected president with Thomas Jefferson as his vice president. At the beginning of his tenure, Adams suffered from the XYZ affair. The affair was a conflict between the U.S. and France that led to the undeclared Franco-American Quasi-War. This war was a naval transgression between the United States and France. Near the end of his tenure, Adams appointed John Marshall as Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. John Marshall will continue to rule on for multiple impactful Supreme Court cases. From October 31st through December 3rd, 1890, Thomas Jefferson and Aaron Burr tied in votes in the Electoral College. The Federalists dominated the House of Representatives, will vote for Jefferson to office with Burr as his vice president. During his presidency, Jefferson will have a very impactful effect on American history. In 1803, the Supreme Court issued a decision in Marbury v. Madison, which overturned the Judiciary Act of 1789. The case defined the boundary between the executive and judicial branches of the government. It established the limitations of the power of judicial review. The United States purchased land from France in 1803. At first, the land boundaries were unclear, but with the signing of the Adams-Onis Treaty, which ceded Florida to the United States, the territory stretched from the Mississippi River to the Rocky Mountains. With the purchase of this massive amount of land, Jefferson hired two individuals, Lewis and Clark, to map and catalog the newly acquired land. These two were led through the land by Sacagawea, a Native American woman who was their guide along the journey. In 1804, the 12th Amendment to the United States Constitution was ratified. The amendment changed the procedure for president and vice presidential elections in the Electoral College. On July 11th, Aaron Burr and Alexander Hamilton had a pistol duel. Alexander Hamilton was fatally wounded during the confrontation. From November 2nd to December 5th, 1804, the presidential election will again emerge with Jefferson as president. In 1807, he passed the Embargo Act of 1807. The act harmed U.S. merchants because the United States refused to trade with the United Kingdom and France during the Napoleonic Wars. In 1808, the foreign slave trade was brought to an end. The United States was no longer allowed to import slaves into the country. In 1810, the Supreme Court issued a decision in Fletcher v. Peck. The decision was declared that federal laws were supreme to state laws. The War of 1812 was between the United States and Great Britain. It was fought because of Great Britain's impressment of the United States sailors into the British Royal Navy, the influence of the Native Americans preventing American expansion, and the British trade restrictions against the United States. On August 24, 1814, British soldiers burned down Washington, D.C., but were forced to retreat to Baltimore. On December 14, 1812, the Treaty of Ghent was signed, officially ending the war between the two nations. During the years of the early republic, the idea of Republican motherhood was beginning to take place. Republican motherhood was the idea that mothers needed to be educated to pass their knowledge of the American Revolution to their children. Another event that was having its revival was the Second Great Awakening, caused by the Enlightenment. This revival was simply a rise in Methodist and Lutheran church memberships.